Thanks for joining us on 9 News Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi. Well, it is the start of a new year, which means we're also looking back on 2022 as well. And specifically, we wanted to take a look back at global temperatures and see the acceleration of climate change. So to do so, we caught up with Sarah Capnick, chief scientist at NOAA, for a bit more on just how warm things were in 2022 in the U.S. and across the globe.
Sarah, thanks so much for joining us today. So NASA, NOAA, just releasing the global temperature data for 2022. Where did we find the rankings for the past year in terms of hottest years on record?
For NOAA's record, we found it was the sixth hottest year on record out of 143 years. NASA found a similar ranking of the fifth hottest year on record.
And how long back do those records go for?
143 years. So going back to the late 1800s.
Okay, so 2022, obviously part of a kind of a larger climate record. So how do the changes that you're observing impact people and society as a whole?
Yeah, so when you have these increases in temperatures, you increase the likelihood for extreme heat events. So heat waves on land, and in the ocean, you get marine heat waves. So they actually look very similar to land, where there are these pockets of regions that get much, much warmer than they were around it and on average. It also impacts other types of the climate system. It increases the strength of the water cycle. The atmosphere can hold more water when it's warmer, and so as a result, we have increases in rainfall and extreme rainfall happening around the world. But it also increases the likelihood and magnitude of droughts, and it also changes certain types of storms. So it affects many different types of weather and climate phenomena.
I guess this one thing that's striking to me is that we had our sixth warmest year on record globally, despite the fact that we had a La Nina event in the Pacific Ocean, which is the cooling of course of Pacific Ocean sea surface temperatures. Can we glean what would happen if we potentially had an El Nino in the coming years?
Yeah, some estimates of the dampening effect of the La Nina right now is that it was 0.1 degrees Celsius of dampening. And so if you, in the absence of La Nina, and actually this is the third La Nina that we've had in a row, it would have actually been a little bit warmer.
So that's obviously part of everything that's going on as well. That said, I know that NASA and NOAA combining to launch some new satellites to help study the Earth this year. How do these help us understand both our climate as well as our day-to-day weather?
Yeah, satellites are critical for being able to have a total snapshot on the Earth. And so they allow us to have enhanced information on where's the water vapor, what are the temperatures, where are the winds going? So we can actually integrate all of this information into understanding a snapshot of the Earth, and then using that to drive our weather models to be able to improve our forecasts. They are also really important for just monitoring the planet. For the report that we have launched today on monitoring temperatures, they're really important for us filling in the gaps in places where we don't have weather stations.
And you mentioned some of those impacts to the drought overall, and as well. We're based here in Colorado, so I'm kind of curious as to what you have gathered in terms of the rising temperatures and its potential impacts on the West, as well as Colorado's droughts over the last few years.
Yeah, last year, in the peak of the season, it was 91% of the American West was under drought conditions. That is manifested by increases also in potential for wildfire, and it's also led to a lot of the reservoirs reaching record lows. For you in Colorado, this drought, but also the higher temperatures, is also leading to less of the snowpack that actually forms in the mountains being translated into river flows. So as a result, when you're in these drought conditions, it takes more and more snow from the past to actually translate into river flows that then actually refill those reservoirs.
So kind of a continuing cycle. What do we expect to see in the future?
Yeah, so really short term, NOAA, we released today that we expect neutral conditions for El Nino by the spring. We'll see what happens as that continues. In the next few years, though, we do expect that we are going to continue on this warming trend. Our statistical models show that we expect that this year, 2023, will likely be another warm year, one of the warmest 10 on record statistically, and we're going to continue to see this march towards warmer and warmer temperatures on average until we no longer have greenhouse gas emissions going into the atmosphere.
And where can we learn more about the impacts to climate as well as impacts to individual state cities?
You can find information on NOAA.gov. I would also direct you to climate.gov, which has a lot of information about local communities and how climate is changing around the country. It even has educational information. For heat and drought, I would also send you to heat.gov and drought.gov, which are our one-stop shops for this across the entire federal government.
Well, thank you, Sarah Capnick, NASA's chief scientist. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
I'm NOAA's chief scientist, and it was a pleasure to meet with you.
My apologies, but Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.